They thought it would be just another royal interview. But when Prince Harry sat across from Scarlett Johansson, everything unraveled faster than anyone expected. He came in confident, but by the time it was over, he wasn't just humiliated, he was kicked out. This isn't just another royal controversy. This is the day everything changed for Prince Harry, live on American television. The Today Show studio was alive with its usual hum of production. Technicians adjusted lights, producers whispered into earpieces, and makeup artists touched up final details. Everything looked routine on the surface, but beneath the polished exterior, there was tension that not even the crew could quite explain. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Prince Harry was in the building. He had arrived 15 minutes earlier than scheduled, dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit. His security team moved like shadows behind him, and his PR handler, an anxious young woman with a clipboard and Bluetooth headset, hovered close, rehearsing pre-approved talking points in a hushed voice. Harry nodded along, but kept glancing around the studio with something between suspicion and wariness. This wasn't Buckingham Palace. It was American media territory. Unpredictable. Uncontrolled. Executive producer Lena Morales watched from the control room, her practiced eye catching what others missed. Harry's shoulders were too rigid, his smile too practiced. She'd seen enough politicians and celebrities to recognize someone bracing for battle. Scarlett Johansson emerged from makeup, radiant in a burgundy blazer, her blonde hair perfectly styled. As this week's celebrity guest host, she moved with the confidence of someone who had survived Hollywood's meat grinder and come out stronger. She spotted Harry immediately. "Good morning," she said, extending her hand with a warm smile. Harry nodded, his tone clipped. "Miss Johansson." She caught the formality immediately. Don't get comfortable. Don't assume anything. But she offered nothing more than a gracious, "Ready for this?" The cameras rolled. Red lights blinked alive across Studio 1A, and the familiar Today Show theme music swelled. Scarlett settled into her chair with practiced ease, but her green eyes held a sharpness that regular viewers might not have expected from the usual softball celebrity interviews. Welcome back to Today. I'm Scarlett Johansson, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. I'm thrilled to be joined by Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. I'm thrilled to be joined by Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. Thank you for having me. Harry replied, his media-trained charm sliding into armor like steel. The first 10 minutes glided by smoothly. Scarlett asked about his latest project, a mental health initiative for veterans, and Harry responded with genuine passion. He spoke eloquently about the cause, name-dropped several nonprofit partners, and used the phrase "duty beyond the uniform" at least twice. Viewers across the country probably nodded in approval. But Scarlett wasn't here just for promotion. "You've built quite an impressive platform since stepping back from royal duties. Speaking of platforms, you've often talked about the importance of authenticity in public life. What does that mean to you, especially in an age where everyone's constantly performing their truth on social media?" Harry's smile remained steady, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I think authenticity means being honest about your experiences, even when they're uncomfortable, especially then. Even when those experiences involve other people who might prefer privacy." The question hung in the air for just a beat too long. In the control room, Lena leaned forward. Jordan Blake, the show's social media strategist, looked up from his phone with sudden interest. Harry cleared his throat. "I think context matters. When you're constantly lying about you in the press, you have a right, no, an obligation, to correct the narrative." Scarlett nodded thoughtfully. "Of course. But who decides what constitutes a lie versus a difference of perspective?" The studio lights seemed brighter now, or maybe it was just the tension becoming visible. Scarlett held her cue cards loosely, but her focus was entirely on Harry. She had asked tougher questions of A-list directors and Oscar winners. A prince shouldn't be any different. "Let's talk about that balance," she continued, her voice still warm, but carrying a new edge. "You've been very open about wanting privacy for your family, especially your children. But you've also shared quite personal details about your relationships with your father, your brother, even private conversations. How do you reconcile those two positions?" Harry's smile stiffened. The change was subtle but unmistakable. "I think that's putting it in an unfair light. When you're constantly having lies told about you in the press, you have a right, no, an obligation, to correct the narrative."
But correcting the narrative often means revealing private conversations that the other parties never consented to share publicly, doesn't it? Silence. Just for 2 seconds, but in live television, 2 seconds feels eternal. Harry uncrossed his legs, then crossed them again. "Look, I didn't come here to be grilled about my personal choices. I came to talk about the important work we're doing with veterans." Scarlett's smile never wavered, but something predatory flickered in her expression. "Of course, and that work is admirable. But as someone who's also navigated fame and privacy battles, I'm curious about where you draw those lines. You've said the public narrative matters." "It does matter," Harry interrupted, his voice carrying a slight snap. "When that narrative affects your family's safety, when it perpetuates lies that could harm your children, yes, it matters." In the social media booth, Jordan Blake's fingers hovered over his keyboard. This was getting interesting. Scarlett tilted her head. "And your family back in the UK? Do you worry about how your public narrative affects their safety, their privacy?" The crack widened. Harry's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and his hands, which had been resting casually on the chair arms, pressed down with barely contained tension. "I think," he said slowly, "we should focus on the work we're here to discuss." But Scarlett was just getting started. Scarlett leaned back in her chair, her expression still pleasant, but her eyes calculating. She had him on the defensive now, and she wasn't about to let up. "You mentioned the important work," she said, her voice deceptively casual. "And it truly is important, but I have to ask, and I think many people are wondering this, does your advocacy sometimes risk being overshadowed by the ongoing family drama, the constant references to past grievances?" Harry's composure finally slipped. His practiced smile vanished entirely. "I think that's baiting, frankly." "I'm not baiting anyone," Scarlett replied evenly. "I'm asking what the audience is already asking. You can't expect to build a platform on personal truth-telling and then be surprised when people ask about the personal truths you're choosing to tell." In the control room, Lena Morales felt her pulse quicken. This was television gold. She quietly signaled for split-screen close-ups, knowing every micro-expression would be dissected online within minutes. Jordan Blake's fingers flew across his keyboard, things getting tense between Scarlett and Harry Prince on Today's Show right now. "She's not pulling punches. #Scarlett versus Harry." The tweet went live instantly. Harry leaned forward, his voice dropping to a more dangerous register. "You know, Miss Johansson, you've had your own battles with the media, invasive photographers, personal life splashed across tabloids. I'd think you'd understand the need to control your own narrative." Scarlett's smile turned razor-sharp. "I do understand it. The difference is, I don't claim to want privacy while simultaneously giving tell-all interviews about my private life. I either want privacy or I don't. That's an oversimplification. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you want the benefits of royal status when it serves you and the sympathy of being a victim when it doesn't." The studio fell dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Harry's fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair, a staccato beat of barely contained irritation. "I think you're mischaracterizing. I'm characterizing based on what you've said publicly." The temperature in Studio 1A had shifted from professional to volcanic. Scarlett sat perfectly still, her posture relaxed but her gaze unwavering. Harry, meanwhile, looked like a man trapped in a cage of his own making. "Let's talk about partnership for a moment." Scarlett consulted her cue cards with theatrical deliberation. "You and Meghan have built this new life together in California. How does she feel about—" "No!" Harry's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Absolutely not." Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry?" "This interview is about me and my work, not my wife. I made that clear beforehand." "Of course, but your wife is integral to your public journey. The move to America, the media company, the charitable foundations, these are joint ventures, aren't they? It seems artificial to discuss your advocacy work without acknowledging your partner. Harry's hands clenched into fists. What seems artificial is you trying to drag her into this when she's not here to defend herself. I wasn't attacking her.
Weren't you? Harry's voice rose slightly, enough for the boom mics to catch the edge of desperation. Because that's what you people always do. You can't just ask about the work. You have to dig into the personal stuff, the family stuff, the private stuff we've asked you to respect. In the social media booth, Jordan was practically vibrating with excitement. His second tweet was already trending. Prince Harry just shut down questions about Meghan hard. Scarlett is not backing down. This is incredible TV. Hashtag Today Show. Hashtag Scarlett versus Harry. Scarlett's expression remained calm, but there was steel in her voice now. Mr. Harry, I'm not you people. I'm a colleague. We're working on a project together through your production company. I thought we were having a conversation between equals. Equals? Harry laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You're sitting here trying to provoke me on live television, and you want to call us equals? I'm asking questions that any journalist would ask. The difference is I'm not intimidated by your title. That hit home. Harry's face flushed slightly, and his carefully maintained media training began to crumble in real time. My title, he repeated slowly. Right, because this is really about that, isn't it? You can't stand that I won't play by your rules. Scarlett set her cue cards aside. She was done with the script now. This was pure instinct, the kind of moment that separated real interviewers from celebrity fluff pieces. Here's what I think is really happening, she said, her voice steady and clear. You've built a career on being the rebel prince, the truth teller, the one who escaped the system. But you're still using that system when it benefits you. The title, the royal connection, the insider access to palace secrets. So my question is this. Has your work become more about selling stories than changing them? The silence that followed was deafening. Harry stared at her, his mouth slightly open, as if he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. Excuse me? It's a fair question, Scarlett continued, her voice growing stronger. I'm asking questions that any journalist would ask. The difference is I'm not intimidated by your title. That hit home. Harry's face flushed slightly, and his carefully maintained media training began to crumble in real time. My title, he repeated slowly. Right, because this is really about that, isn't it? You can't stand that I won't play by your rules. Scarlett set her cue cards aside. She was done with the script now. This was pure instinct, the kind of moment that separated real interviewers from celebrity fluff pieces. Here's what I think is really happening, she said, her voice steady and clear. You've built a career on being the rebel prince, the truth teller, the one who escaped the system. But you're still using that system when it benefits you. The title, the royal connection, the insider access to palace secrets. So my question is this. Has your work become more about selling stories than changing them? The silence that followed was deafening. Harry stared at her, his mouth slightly open, as if he couldn't quite believe what he just heard. Excuse me? It's a fair question, Scarlett continued, her voice growing stronger. I'm asking questions that any journalist would ask. The difference is I'm not intimidated by your title. Harry's face flushed slightly, and his carefully maintained media training began to crumble in real time. My title, he repeated slowly. Right, because this is really about that, isn't it? You can't stand that I won't play by your rules. Scarlett set her cue cards aside. She was done with the script now. This was pure instinct, the kind of moment that separated real interviewers from celebrity fluff pieces. Here's what I think is really happening, she said, her voice steady and clear. You've built a career on being the rebel prince, the truth teller, the one who escaped the system. But you're still using that system when it benefits you. The title, the royal connection, the insider access to palace secrets. So my question is this. Has your work become more about selling stories than changing them? The silence that followed was deafening.
Harry stared at her, his mouth slightly open, as if he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. "Excuse me?" "It's a fair question," Scarlett continued, her voice growing stronger. "I'm asking questions that any journalist would ask. The difference is I'm not intimidated by your title." Harry's composure shattered completely. "You want to talk about selling stories. Let's talk about you profiting off controversy. How many magazine covers have you been on this month alone? How many promotional interviews are you doing for your latest movie?" Scarlett didn't flinch. "I'm not the one asking people to trust me with their mental health advocacy while simultaneously monetizing my family trauma." "I am not monetizing." "What would you call it then?" she asked quietly. "Because from the outside, it looks like every book deal, every documentary, every exclusive interview is built on the same foundation. Let me tell you what my family did to me. And that's fine if that's what you want to do, but own it. Don't wrap it in noble language about service and truth-telling." Harry's hands were shaking now, barely visible tremors that the cameras caught in devastating close-up. In the control room, Lena held her breath. This was the moment, the point where guests either broke down or walked away. "You have no idea," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "what it's like to have your entire life dissected by people who've never lived it." Scarlett leaned forward slightly. "You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to be asked difficult questions about my choices, and I know the difference between answering them and deflecting them." She paused, letting the moment breathe. "So I'll ask again. Are you here to change things, or are you here to sell your story?" The question hung in the air like a live wire. Harry stared at Scarlett, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. For a moment, it seemed like he might answer, like he might engage with the challenge she had thrown down. Instead, he reached up and unclipped his microphone. The small gesture sent shockwaves through the studio. Crew members froze mid-movement. In the control room, Lena's eyes went wide. This was uncharted territory. "Don't do that," Scarlett said firmly, her voice cutting through the sudden tension. "Don't walk away. This is your platform. Use it." Harry stood up, the wireless mic pack sliding off his belt and clattering to the floor. "You don't want truth, Miss Johansson. You want theater, and I'm not going to be your entertainment." "I want accountability," she replied, remaining seated but turning to follow him with her gaze. "There's a difference." Harry turned back to face her, his expression a mixture of fury and something that looked almost like hurt. "You know what? You're exactly like the rest of them. You hide behind noble intentions while you tear people down for sport."
"I'm not tearing you down. I'm asking you to own your narrative or step away from the microphone." The words hit like a slap. Harry's face went pale, then flushed red. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'll step away." He turned and walked toward the stage exit, his security detail scrambling to follow. Tommy Green, the floor manager, tried to intercept him near the edge of the set. "Your Royal Highness, please, we can take a break." "It's just Harry," he snapped, brushing past Tommy without breaking stride. "And I'm done." The studio doors slammed shut behind him with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent space. Scarlett sat alone under the hot lights, her expression unreadable. After a moment, she looked directly into the camera. "We'll be right back," she said calmly, as if nothing had happened. The red recording lights went dark. The moment the cameras cut, Studio 1A erupted into controlled chaos. Producers rushed between workstations, assistants spoke frantically into headsets, and somewhere in the distance, Harry's voice could be heard raised in anger. What the hell just happened? Ava Chen, Scarlett's PR advisor, materialized at her side, her usually composed demeanor cracking. "Do you have any idea what this is going to look like?" Scarlett stood up slowly, smoothing down her blazer. "It's going to look like someone finally asked him real questions. This could destroy your reputation, or make it. Depends on how people feel about accountability." In the backstage area, Harry was pacing like a caged animal. His PR handler tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "We can spin this," she said, her voice pitched high with panic. "Ambush interview, hostile environment, unfair treatment." "Enough,"
Harry exploded, grabbing his microphone pack from where Tommy had retrieved it and slamming it onto a nearby table. I'm tired of spinning. I'm tired of managing. I'm tired of playing defense every time someone asks me a hard question. Meanwhile, in the control room, Lena Morales was having the time of her life. She was already on the phone with legal, getting clearance to post the full, unedited segment online. "This is going to be everywhere within an hour," she told her assistant. "Make sure we have the social media rights locked down." Jordan Blake was practically vibrating with excitement as his fingers flew across his keyboard. Breaking. Prince Harry just walked off the Today Show set after explosive interview with Scarlett Johansson. She told him to own your narrative or step away from the microphone. He chose to step away. "This is insane." Hashtag Scarlett versus Harry. Hashtag Today Show. The tweet was retweeted 500 times before he finished typing the next one. Back in the makeup room, Scarlett sat in front of the mirror, touching up her lipstick with steady hands. She looked completely unruffled, but Ava could see the slight tension around her eyes. "Any regrets?" Ava asked quietly. Scarlett met her gaze in the mirror. "Ask me tomorrow when I see the headlines." Within 30 minutes of Harry's walk-off, hashtag Scarlett versus Harry was trending worldwide. The Today Show's social media team had uploaded a carefully edited clip, just the final exchange and the dramatic exit, and it was already approaching 1 million views. The internet did what the internet does best. It chose sides. @RoyalWatcherUK. Absolutely disgusting behavior from Scarlett Johansson. This was clearly an ambush. Harry was there to discuss charity work, and she turned it into a character assassination. @MediaCriticNYC. Finally, someone held Harry accountable for his contradictions. Scarlett Johansson just gave a masterclass in real journalism. That line about own your narrative or step away from the microphone will be quoted for years. @PopCultureT. The way Harry's voice cracked when he said, "I'll step away," though, I'm not even team anyone, but that was brutal to watch. Piers Morgan tweeted, "Scarlett Johansson just did what every journalist has wanted to do for years. Brilliant, fearless interview. Harry can dish it out, but clearly can't take it. Hashtag Scarlett versus Harry. Hashtag Today Show."
The response came swift. Typical misogynistic pile-on. A woman asks tough questions, and suddenly she's brilliant. A man walks away from harassment, and he can't take it. The double standards are exhausting. Hashtag Team Harry. By evening, major news networks were running segments on the interview. CNN had a panel debating accountability versus ambush journalism. Fox News was calling it Hollywood elitism attacks working royal. MSNBC was analyzing it as the moment celebrity interviews grew teeth. The Duchess of Sussex remained notably silent on all her social media platforms, fueling even more speculation. Back at NBC, Lena was fielding calls from network executives, rival shows trying to book Scarlett, and PR firms wanting to know if their clients were safe from similar treatment. Her assistant knocked on her office door. "The ratings are in." Lena looked up from her computer. And? The highest single-segment viewership in Today's Show history. The YouTube clip is at 3 million views and climbing. Lena smiled. "Well then, I'd say that went rather well." 3 weeks later, the dust had settled, but the impact lingered like smoke in the air. Columbia Journalism School added Scarlett's interview to their curriculum. The Johansson method, as professors were calling it, became shorthand for holding public figures accountable without the traditional deference that titles usually commanded. Students analyzed the transcript line by line, studying how she escalated pressure while maintaining professional composure. In her corner office at NBC, Lena Morales had a custom plaque made and mounted on her wall. "Own your narrative or step away from the microphone. S. Johansson, November 2024. Below it hung a framed screenshot of the moment Harry unclipped his mic, now an iconic image that had been memed, analyzed, and debated across every platform imaginable. Harry quietly canceled the remaining stops on his U.S. promotional tour. His team cited scheduling conflicts, but everyone knew the truth. The prince who had built his post-royal brand on controlling his narrative had been asked to defend it and chose retreat instead. His absence from unscripted media became a story in itself. Scarlett, meanwhile, found herself in an unexpected position. Hollywood respected her before, but now they revered her. The interview had revealed something beyond her acting talents, a fearless integrity that couldn't be bought, managed, or intimidated. Her humanitarian work received more serious attention. Her next film's press tour was booked solid with journalists who actually wanted to discuss her craft, not her personal life. The Today Show's ratings remained elevated for months. Other talk shows started advertising their willingness to ask the hard questions, though few hosts possess Scarlett's unique combination of star power and journalistic instinct. Jordan Blake was promoted to head of digital strategy. His career-defining live tweet thread was now case study material at social media marketing conferences worldwide. But perhaps the most telling epilogue came from an unexpected source. At a media ethics conference 6 months later, a journalism professor posed the question that had emerged from that November morning. In an age where public figures craft their narratives more carefully than ever, who has the responsibility to ask them to defend those narratives? The answer, it seemed, was anyone brave enough to risk the consequences. The clash was over, but the question it raised, can anyone truly control their story when someone refuses to play along, had become the defining media debate of the decade. Some moments create ripples, others create waves that reshape the shoreline. This was the latter. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.